Combine was very interesting to me because we got to see some guys really show out. A lot of guys playing well, and you mentioned that Bryce Young being a mistake. What was he listed as? It was 5'10" and 204 pounds. I want to make sure I do get that right, but not a big boy, so to say. Combine measurements, but there were two quarterbacks. Okay, 5'10" and an eighth, 204 pounds, just to make sure. But the two guys that everybody was talking about was CJ Stroud. Obviously, we're going to cover him because I do think there's one team that is focusing in on him, and the other one being Anthony Richardson. We didn't know much about Anthony Richardson other than he played for Florida and he was a quarterback before going into this draft. And now he might be shooting up the top of the list late. He is a massive quarterback at 6'4", 244 pounds. And he ran a 4.43 40-yard dash to the combine. That's insane for a guy his size. His broad jump is at 10.9. His vertical jump, 40.5. Those were the best marks among the 9 quarterbacks who participated in these drills. So I am stunned by this. And I guess if I was a Florida fan, I'd be like, yeah, we knew about him the whole time. There. Could Richardson be the number one? Again, it depends on if Chicago trades this pick. I still think they're going to, but let's say a team like Houston gets in that mix. They trade up. Let's say a team like Indianapolis. Do they go with this guy from Florida?
It's a risk. It's a risk that could pay off. It's a risk that could set a franchise back that is looking and searching for their franchise quarterback. At the same time, though, listen, Bryce Young is a phenomenal college quarterback. This is no shot at Bryce Young, but right. Mitch. I heard people say Baker Mayfield was too small. What does that make Bryce Young? I mean, let's be honest here. I loved Baker at the time. I was a huge advocate in taking Baker Mayfield. If you said Baker Mayfield was too small, he was a bit taller, he weighed more, and now you have a quarterback coming in that was the likely number one pick all along, or first quarterback taken, and all of a sudden there's a lot of question, Mitch, can he take hits? Playing in the SEC is a different style of football, obviously, compared to most other conferences in college, but the NFL is a monster. Can a quarterback like Bryce Young take hits and survive the hits and last long enough? And it then brings you to the question, with Richardson being 244 pounds and 6'4", you don't have to worry about can he see over the line. You know he has about a 44-pound advantage over Bryce Young. Did Bryce Young? He's very good. Okay, I'm not trying to diminish Bryce
Young. He was a very good quarterback in college. Yeah.
Let's not act like he didn't play for the greatest college football coach and didn't have amazing talent around him either. Where Anthony Richardson necessarily didn't have the same type of talent around him on the football field basically anytime. It's just interesting, I think. I think CJ Stroud, Mitch, should be the top quarterback taken based off what he's done. If you're the Texans, I don't know why you wouldn't take him and then potentially take Jackson Smith-Njigba, who had a phenomenal combine at 12, and pair up the two that have great chemistry with each other on your team that is desperate for a quarterback and desperate for a star wide receiver. The Will Levis talk, Mitch, has vanished. I mean, before the combine, it was Will Levis. Could he be the top quarterback taken? I'm happy that has vanished because he shouldn't be the top quarterback taken. If he makes me eat my words, so be it. But you're talking about a guy that couldn't beat out Grandpa Clifford at Penn State and had to transfer to Kentucky. Let's just call it for what it is. I would hate to be the Houston Texans unless a team hops them to draft a quarterback, because then the pressure is off you. But if the Bears trade the number one pick and a team hops up and takes Will Anderson or takes an offensive lineman or takes a defensive player, the pressure on the Houston Texans on making sure they take the right quarterback is going to be insane. Because if you don't, not only does it hurt you and set your franchise back, you potentially have to look at those other quarterbacks, blossom into the next best quarterback in the league, and potentially play them every year, depending on where they go. It's just, I would hate to be the Houston Texans. I really would. Now, if the Colts jump up to want to take a quarterback, I firmly believe all pressure is off, because then if you take Bryce Young, it's like, well, for good reason. He was the best available. So be it. The Houston Texans are in a really tough spot here. But
See, I think with the defense thing, that would probably be more so if the Bears retain that number one pick, because then they can focus in on either fixing their defense or trying to bolster the offensive line for Justin Fields. I did pull up something right here regarding Bryce Young. Kyler Murray, who was selected number one a few years ago, was measured at 5'10" and an eighth, like Young, and 207 pounds, so 3 pounds heavier. He was the shortest first round QB since 1967. And there's only been two quarterbacks drafted in the first round who were uh under 6 feet. Him and then Johnny Manziel from a few years ago. Michael Vick and Drew Brees were both at 6 feet even, and they were both over 210. So Young is coming in at one of the smaller guys, and I don't necessarily think he has the flashiest of skill sets like Murray did coming out of college. And I wonder if, say, the Texans were to get that top pick, or they stay at number two and Chicago takes another guy at number one, would you take Richardson because he's a big player who can at least handle some of the hits in the NFL, seemingly? Because Houston's offensive line, not great. Indianapolis's line, not the greatest. A team like Baltimore's offensive line was pretty good from this past season. I believe it was they're one of the top teams in the league. But again, I'm fascinated into seeing where Richardson could end up. Could he go number one? Could he go all the way to probably number eight, it seems, where the Colts are? Because if the Colts stand strong, I think that CJ Stroud would be a very good fit for them. I think CJ proved himself to be a very capable thrower, not just in the championship game, but from this combine recently. That man was just slinging perfect spirals all over the place. Granted, I know it's the whole thing. It's like you're in a dome, you're in shorts. I get it. But he proved himself extremely capable as a college quarterback and seemingly has the tangibles to be successful in the NFL. And I'd be very interested in seeing that matchup of him. Again, I think Stroud's a very solid thrower and he has more of a build than Young does. I'm not saying that Young can't play in the NFL, but it's very difficult for these guys. I mean, look at Kyler Murray this season, having to deal with the injuries that he was dealing with. And a lot of that, some of the stuff that happened in the offseason was on him. But at the same time, I'm interested in this. I'm curious as to where these quarterbacks will go. And then there's other guys in this mix that we haven't even talked about. Potentially, you mentioned Will Richardson is a top defensive guy. Jalen Carter, who we talked about last week, could still be a top 5 pick if some team takes the risk of his off the field stuff going on right now. I don't know, man.